How's it going, guys? My name is Thomas. Today we're going to be talking about what cryotherapy actually is. Basically, the simple version would be that you get in this chamber right here, and it gets down to negative 300 degrees Fahrenheit, and you're in there for 2 to 3 minutes. It causes this thing called vasoconstriction, which basically means that it pulls all your blood from your extremities to your internal organs in order to protect them. This is the reason we actually have, or you actually get, frostbite in your fingers, toes, and places like your ears first. You're only in there 3 to 5 minutes, so it makes it very safe. In fact, you might think this is crazy, but it's actually safer than an ice bath. Ice baths are actually like way harder on the system. They actually like shock you and could stop your heart, whereas cryotherapy doesn't have the same effect on you because it's not like well, basically because it's a dry nitrogen gas rather than liquid or a solid, where basically both of those will drain you of your heat at a much faster rate. Anyway, that's just if I was doing the quick version. I'm actually going to do a full breakdown of this. I actually wrote down a table of contents on my hand even, because there's a lot we're going to be talking about. This is mostly for people who have never heard of cryotherapy before and are looking for some new information on it, but if you do know what cryotherapy is, you will still learn a lot about it. So first off, it's in over 50 hospitals across Europe. It started in Asia and kind of moved west until finally it's now gotten to America, and it's been here a couple years. Originally it was introduced for rheumatoid arthritis and scoliosis, which is, for those of you who don't know, your spine is just kind of angled, it's not quite right. And kind of just went from there. The original studies on cold therapy, the first use ever, dates back all the way to 1600 BC. At least that's as far as we know. But I believe the first actual documented studies began in 1819 that are actually like referenceable and worth a dang. It's also used in the American Veterinary Medical Association to treat dogs and horses and a lot of other animals, and is supported by them. Harvard has published studies and will actually be referencing them in some of what I'm going to be talking about, and so forth. So that kind of breaks down the history. There are actually two kinds of chambers. So you just saw the one we have right there. The one we have, I'm actually going to go back over there, is a cryo sauna. The other one is a cryo chamber. Basically the one we have, your head is above the top, which I'll go back in and I'll kind of show you. Right here. So in this variant, your head is above the top. So when you get in, you're raised up. This bottom part right here is actually an elevator. When you step in, it brings you up so that your head is above the top. This is important because these things use nitrogen. And nitrogen, as you probably know, has CO2 in it. And CO2, as you probably know, isn't good for you. It's actually the reason why water heaters are dangerous. And just on a side note, I worked for a water heater company, and the water heater is the most dangerous appliance in your house. CO2 isn't going to do anything bad right away, just so you guys know. It takes a while before it actually has any real effects, and it has flu-like symptoms long before it gets to the point where you pass out. And that's actually what makes it scary, is the fact that it is flu-like symptoms, and you'll mistake it for something else. But just so you guys know, and I'm veering off topic here a little bit, but I want to talk about safety real fast. A couple things. First off, right here, there's an oxygen monitor, and these things have to be set up to code. Cryo chambers can't just be, in places, you know what I mean? This pipe right here, it also had to be placed in here to be up to code. These nitrogen tanks, there are different kinds of nitrogen tanks you can get, and we actually have a smaller variant because we couldn't get the bigger ones because they weren't to code. Another thing, this chamber right here, this whole side, this side you actually stand in, but this side right here filters the nitrogen and keeps it from becoming too cold to, again, keep it safe. Another thing is you can also see the temperature while you're in here. That little number right there, that little square, let's see right there, where my finger is, right above it. That thing right there actually tells you the temperature. So you know the temperature while you're in there. And actually, one more time, if you see the thing right here, oh, you can't really see it. Right where my finger is, there's this little like white thing that also actually monitors the amount of CO2 in the air. And both of them will actually set off alarms if they get too high. And finally, this little knob right here is a fan. So it actually, filters the air out of here to make sure it stays, solid and breathable. So there's nothing to worry about as far as like safety goes. Really, I mean, as long as you're not in there for a prolonged period of time, you're gonna be fine. And at all times, we have someone in there with you. You're not actually allowed to use the machine by yourself, and they've incorporated a ton of little things to make sure that you don't do it by yourself. It's actually impossible to do it by yourself because I'm not in there anymore, but the machine, as soon as you open the door, it turns off. And as you know, there's an elevator. So when you get in, if you were to shut yourself in, there's no way you could operate the board because you're so low down. So unless you're like, I don't even think LeBron James would be tall enough. So I mean, you can't use it by yourself. It's kind of impossible. So why do people do this? Benefits. There are a huge range of benefits. Really, I would say that there are 12 realistic benefits at this time, maybe 11. It depends on how you look at like will and like the focus and vigilance part of things. But it helps you sleep, although it's not one of the biggest benefits. That's actually the biggest benefits. Weight loss is a definite. Cognitive functions are a definite huge thing. Stanford University actually came out with a study that said this is what they said, okay, quote unquote. They said that the studies on cryotherapy were unremarkable with the exception of the release of a hormone called norepinephrine. Now, if you watch some of my other videos, you could probably skip this because I'm about to talk about norepinephrine. Norepinephrine is huge. It's really the key part of what is, all the other benefits like work off of, because the body is an interconnected system. Whenever you have something happen, whenever one thing happens, it usually sets up a chain reaction. Basically, in the case of norepinephrine, it's what causes your metabolism to get going and is a huge part of what helps weight loss. It's a huge part in how it helps with vasoconstriction, which is, like I said at the beginning of the video, the pulling of your blood to your extremities. And from there, basically, all the other benefits are byproducts of, this one thing. For example, if we're going to talk about skincare, there would be like 2 or 3 things that would be huge for this. So skincare, or aging, I should say, longevity, is mostly due to lack of blood flow in your skin. You see, your skin actually has like all these really tiny capillaries, I think they're called, or like little veins in your skin, and they sometimes are kind of hard to get blood to, or don't always get blood to, like your eyes and stuff. So when vasoconstriction happens, which is, like I said, the blood being pulled, periodically, in order to keep your extremities from freezing, because it's not like your body wants that to happen, it just values your internal organs more as well. But to keep it from happening, it will periodically send all the blood back, and it will it'll really reach to try and get blood to everything. And at the same time, the blood that's pulled to your internal organs, well, everything's there. It's oxygenating your blood, you're hyperventilating while you're in there. Your metabolism's going like crazy. You're burning up food. Nutrients are being sent everywhere, and it's being loaded with hormones. So every time your blood gets pushed back out, it's not just everyday ordinary blood. That's fully oxygenated, full of nutrients, full of hormones, and so it's getting it where it needs to be. So you could say that when you get out, you're as close to working at full power really as possible. Your body's rocking. You've got like 3 times the amount of norepinephrine in you, so you're focused, you're alert, you feel good, and your body's functioning super great, right? So to really get into all the benefits, it would take me all day. So I'm actually gonna make a separate video about that. So I wanted to kind of conclude it there. But that's good for now, so I hope that kind of sets a base. Next thing I want to talk about is who's using it. So, whew, boy, this thing has had some crazy celebrity and media coverage. It's some of the obvious ones. Everyone knows that LeBron James, Floyd Mayweather, Conor McGregor, Kobe Bryant use it. Most people know that the Dallas Mavericks and Dallas Cowboys use it. An insane amount of, like, pretty much all the sports teams use it now. Here personally, the Sounders are regulars. Nikola Ladero, we'll get in this guy. He'll jump on the bike right here. He'll do the bike for a couple minutes and he'll jump right back in again and do it twice in a row. The Seahawks come in. I get a couple gentlemen from the Huskies, University of Washington that come in. So it's huge in sports. But aside from that, Daniel Craig uses it, Demi Lovato and Demi Moore use it, Kevin Hart uses it, Wolverine, Hugh Jackman, he uses it. like, it's just like, it's super popular amongst all these guys. So it's being used by pretty much everybody. The thing is like, cold therapy isn't necessarily anything new. It's just like only now, I guess, becoming like more popular with the resurgence or just with the millennial generation. And I don't mean to say anything weird with that, but it just the idea of health has become just so much more popular than it is now. And so I don't necessarily mean with the millennial generation. I mean along those timelines. I'm not saying that we're responsible for anything like that. I don't like being associated with millennials because I feel like they have a bad reputation. But yeah. Anyway. So how much does it cost, right? How much does it cost? So it depends on a lot of things. So aside from obvious things like overhead, aside from the cost of the machine, which, believe it or not, the machine in there, that thing was like $70,000, I believe. Tony Robbins has one at his house. I think all of his houses even, kind of funny. Obviously there's codes, you know, that cost. Nitrogen, that, you know, is another thing there. So it depends. You'll see it as expensive as $100 or so per treatment. We offer an introductory rate of $40, and the most you'll ever pay is $65. If you're looking for better offers, better deals, we have memberships and we have packages, and I encourage you to check out our website and go look at the price list to get a better idea, because I'm not really trying to go into the whole thing. I just want to give you guys a broad overview of all the basics. So please do that, or check out the later video I make on that separate topic. But yeah, so that kind of covers that. Next thing, research. How much research has been done on this guy? Well, like I said, its first, you know, recorded use was in 1600 BC. Its first documented research study, I believe, was done, like I said, in 1819. A lot of different companies, a lot of different, you know, well-known establishments have done research on this thing. Like Harvard, for example. Sorry, the recording just stopped. It kind of does that sometimes. So, like, an insane amount of research. And there are a couple things that are indisputable, a couple things that no one has been able to say no to. And like I said, one of those things is the release of norepinephrine. 2 to 3-fold every single time is released in your body and brain. And sometimes as much as 5 times, but I'm not trying to get crazy. I want to stay within the confines of what's realistic with you guys. So it's well studied. What's not is that, like, they haven't, I don't really understand even necessarily completely, like, they say that there's no evidence for it. And the reason they say that is because, like, all the studies have been kind of like just screwy in a lot of ways. Or that, like, they're just kind of like these weird biases about things. Like one, for example, said that, like, they needed to do, like, blind tests alongside, like, you know, for, like, the control group. And I'm not a scientist, I'm not a researcher, so you have to excuse my my butchering of this here. But basically, there was no alternate study to see what people were doing for cold therapy that weren't aware that they were doing cryotherapy. But that's kind of impossible, okay, if I'm explaining this right. As in, if I'm explaining this in such a way that you are understanding, is that you know when you're cold, you know. So there's not really a way to do a blind test and have a control group of people that you're doing cold therapy tests with, and you're freezing without them knowing they're cold. So you can't have two. And so because of a lot of, like, weird situations like that, there has been saying that there's, like, a lack of evidence. But, like, basically, go on the internet, go on the American Veterinary Medical Association, go look up Stanford, go wherever you gotta go. You'll find stuff that, like, you know, that supports it. Now, granted, there are false claims, and there are a lot of things that are, like, blown out of proportion. And I think right now that cryotherapy is very overhyped. I think it's too much so hyped, but I think that it definitely has its uses. And I kind of want to conclude with this right here and say that, like, basically it's you know, when compared to a lot of other things, even over-the-counter drugs, surgery, like so many other medical procedures, those things are expensive. This is very cheap in comparison, very cheap. The other thing is it's completely painless, and it's a completely natural system thing. I wanted to say thing, but I don't know, system. It's natural. So the effects on your body, you know, are better than, say, for example, if you're going to use a skincare product, your body is going to be less likely to use that, you know, as it is the effects I was telling you earlier about how it, you know, affects skincare, right? So it's, you know, it's cheap. It's just a normal, natural thing. It's painless, and it's a great alternative. Like, it doesn't hurt you. So I mean, like in the case of like, you know, animals and stuff like that, it's great for that reason. Like, you know, they're not in pain. They've shown no signs of discomfort or anything like that. Honestly, you're not gonna, you know, feel like crap at all while you're in there. In fact, go in there with a headache or whatever it is. If you got a hangover, come visit, seriously. Because norepinephrine, that you know, hormone I keep referencing, is actually a painkiller as well. They actually inject it into people's backs to relieve them of pain, and you will absolutely feel better when you get out. I can honestly say I've seen enough people, I've talked with enough people that when they get out, they feel great. So if I didn't answer your question, please check out the description below. We've got some awesome links in there. Feel free to send us a message or to comment in the YouTube section, and I will get back to you as soon as possible on some new information. Hopefully you enjoyed this video. And in case you guys didn't know also, that you guys get a free gym session with your cryotherapy session. And we also have tennis courts on the other side of this wall right here, through the door right there. So if you know, were thinking about hitting up a tennis center or something like that, that's cool too. Kill a couple birds with the same stone. Anyway, till next time, I hope you enjoyed this video. Peace out.